الرحیم معزز چیئرمین نیپرا اتھارٹی اور نہایت ہی قابل احترام سامعین جو ہمارے ساتھ یہاں پر اور ورچولی موجود ہیں، السلام علیکم اینڈ گڈ آفٹرنون۔ میں طیبہ سلیم آج کے اس ویبینار میں آپ سب کو خوش آمدید کہتی ہوں۔ پروگرام کا باقاعدہ آغاز تلاوت قرآن پاک سے کریں گے۔
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم۔
اللہ کے نام سے جو بڑا مہربان نہایت رحم والا ہے۔ سورۃ الاخلاص۔
قل هو اللہ احد،
آپ کہہ دیجئے کہ وہ اللہ ایک ہے،
اللہ الصمد،
اللہ بے نیاز ہے،
لم یلد ولم یولد،
نہ اس کی کوئی اولاد ہے اور نہ وہ کسی کی اولاد ہے،
ولم یکن له کفوا احد،
اور کوئی اس کا ہمسر و برابری کرنے والا نہیں ہے۔
صدق اللہ العظیم۔
جزاک اللہ جی۔
جزاک اللہ۔ آج کا ویبینار نیپرا آئی ٹی او ٹی ریگولیشن امپلیمنٹیشن روڈ میپ چیئرمین نیپرا کے خاص اقدام پاور وتھ سیکیورٹی کے تحت منعقد کیا گیا ہے۔ نیپرا سائبر سیکیورٹی او ٹی آئی ٹی ریگولیشن اپروو ہو چکی ہیں اور اب تک 131 فوکل پرسن کی نومینیشن ہو چکی ہیں اور ریگولیشن کی کمپلائنس رپورٹ بھی موصول ہو چکی ہیں، اور آگاہی کے مقصد کے تحت ویبینارز کا سلسلہ جاری ہے۔ ہمارا آج کا یہ 11ویں ویبینار ہے۔ پچھلے تمام ویبینار آپ نیپرا کے آفیشیل یوٹیوب چینل سے ایکسیس کر سکتے ہیں۔ سب سے پہلے میں چیئرمین نیپرا کو دعوت دینا چاہوں گی کہ آج کے ویبینار کے اوپننگ ریمارکس کے لیے تشریف لائیں۔
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم۔ ٹو بی آنیسٹ ہماری آئی ڈی ٹیم اتنی تیزی سے یہ والے ویبینارز کروا رہی ہیں کہ مجھے لگا کہ ابھی چند دن پہلے میں یہاں پہ تھا، اسی ٹاپک پہ بات کر رہا تھا تو آپ لوگ تنگ آ گئے ہوں گے مجھے سن کے اس موضوع پہ۔ ہمارے ایکسپرٹس یہاں پہ رضی فاروقی صاحب یہاں پہ موجود ہیں، تو میں ایک فاروقی جو ہے وہ اسٹیج دوسرے فاروقی کے لیے خالی کرتا ہے۔ تھیم بڑا سمپل سا ہے کہ ہم اپنے جو پاور ایسٹس ہیں جو کہ بڑے ایک نیشنل کریٹیکل انفراسٹرکچر ہے اس کو پروٹیکٹ کرنا چاہتے ہیں۔ کام یہ اوریجنلی ہمارا نہیں تھا، ہمارا یہ خیال تھا، تو جب میں یہاں آیا تو 1 سال تک میں ویٹ کرتا رہا شاید ہماری منسٹری آف آئی ٹی اور کوئی ادارہ یہ کام کرے گا جو ڈیفینیٹلی ہم سے بیٹر پلیسڈ ہیں اس کام کو کرنے کے لیے۔ لیکن جب ہم نے وہاں سے کوئی موومنٹ نہیں دیکھی تو پھر وی تھاٹ کہ جیسا بھی ہے ہم اس کام کو خود کریں۔ آئی نیور کلیمڈ کہ ہم کوئی اس کے لیے بیسٹ سوٹڈ لوگ ہیں یا کوئی عقل کل ہے اس پہ، لیکن سم تھنگ از آلویز بیٹر دین نتھنگ۔ تو ہم نے اپنے لاسٹ سپٹمبر میں اپنے جو ہمارے آئی ٹی او ٹی کے ریگولیشنز ہیں ان کو انٹرنل وزڈم سے اور کچھ باہر کے لوگوں سے بھی ڈسکشن کے بعد اس کو فائنلائز کیا، اور اس کے بعد پھر ہم نے ایک نیپرا میں انٹرنل ایک سرٹ بنایا، اور پھر ہم نے ویری گریشیسلی ہمارے جو 12 لوگ ہمارے ساتھ کنیکٹڈ ہیں ہمارے ایڈوائزری بورڈ میں، ہم نے پاور سیکٹر کا سرٹ بنایا، اور ابھی ہماری 3 اس پہ میٹنگز ہو چکی ہیں، ہر مہینے ایک میٹنگ ہو رہی ہے اور اٹس گوئنگ فینٹاسٹکلی ویل۔ ہمیں بڑے اچھے اس میں مشورے مل رہے ہیں، بڑے اچھے پروگرس کر رہے ہیں۔ ابھی جو لاسٹ ہماری میٹنگ ہوئی اس میں ہم نے ایک اس کے بعد ایک فارم ڈیولپ کیا ہے۔ یہ بالکل وہی تھیم ہے جیسے ہم نے پاور وتھ پراسپیرٹی یا پاور وتھ سیفٹی میں ہم نے اپنے سارے لائسنسز جو کہ 300 پلس ہیں ان کی پرفارمنس اپریزل کیا ان کا، اور اس کی بیس پہ ہم نے لاسٹ 2 ایئرس سے نیپرا میں جیسے آپ کے گریمیز ایوارڈز ہوتے ہیں اس طرح سے ہم نے ایک ایوارڈ شروع کیا، اور جو پاکستان کے ٹاپ پرفارمرز ہیں بوتھ آن سی ایس آر فرنٹ اور ایچ ایس سی فرنٹ ان کو ہم نے ایوارڈ دیا۔ تو اسی تھیم پہ ہم چل رہے ہیں۔ ابھی قرۃ العین نے ہمارے ایک سرٹ کے ممبر ہیں کاشف نام ہے نا ان کا، کاشف کے ساتھ مل کے انہوں نے ایک وہ کویسچنیئر بنایا ہے۔ ویسے تو وہ اس میں 69 ڈفرنٹ پیرامیٹرز ہے جس پہ ہم ان کو جج کریں گے بیسڈ آن آر آئی ٹی اینڈ او ٹی ریگولیشنز، لیکن فار دا سیک آف سمپلیفیکیشن اور ٹو میک اٹ مور آف پریکٹیکل اسسمنٹ ٹول، ہم نے 20 پیرامیٹرز کو شارٹ لسٹ کیا ہے जो कि इनिशियल फेज पे हम उनको उस पर इवेलुएट करेंगे, और थीम यही है कि गोइंग फॉरवर्ड इंशाल्लाह जो टॉप परफॉर्मर्स होते हैं उनको हम यहाँ बुला के इंशाल्लाह अवार्ड भी देंगे, उनको रिवॉर्ड भी करेंगे। और सबसे बड़ी बात ये होती है कि मैंने ये देखा कि लोगों में इतनी ज़्यादा एंथुजियाज्म पाई गई इस चीज़ पे। मैंने आपको शायद जिक्र किया था कि अभी चंद महीने पहले एक K3 प्रोजेक्ट है न्यूक्लियर का, उसका इफ्तिताह था। तो वहाँ जब मैं गया तो मुझे ये देख के बहुत ही खुशी हुई कि उन्होंने कोई 18 फुट एक लेफ्ट और राइट पे एक होर्डिंग लगाई हुई थी छत से ग्राउंड तक, जिस पे लिखा हुआ था प्राउड विनर ऑफ नेप्रास CSR गोल्ड अवार्ड। तो उस पे बड़े अच्छे हमें कमेंट्स भी आए। और सबसे बड़ी बात है कि उनके जो चेयरमैन है वहाँ पे उन्होंने बताया कि जी लास्ट ईयर हम सिल्वर उस पे थे, और इस साल हम वी आर द टॉप कंटेंडर फॉर दिस CSR अवार्ड। और उस पे प्राइम मिनिस्टर साहब और हमारे मिनिस्टर पावर थे वो बड़े उस पे खुश हुए। इसके अलावा अभी चंद दिन पहले मेरे पास NG एक कंपनी है जो कि बेल्जियम बेस्ड और फ्रेंच भी हैं उसमें, वो वन ऑफ द टॉप पावर कंपनीज इन द वर्ल्ड, जिसके बेतहाशा एसेट्स हैं ऑल ओवर द वर्ल्ड। यहाँ पे जो कोटादू पावर कंपनी थी उसमें जो नेशनल पावर थी वो भी उन्होंने टेक ओवर कर लिया। तो उनका एक CEO मेरे पास आया हुआ था मिलने, दे ओन उच्च पावर 1 और उच्च पावर 2। तो उसने मुझे कहा कि वी आर द प्राउड विनर ऑफ आपका जो HSE अवार्ड है, तो वो हमने पूरी दुनिया में हमारे जो प्लांट्स हैं उनको हमने बताया कि इन पाकिस्तान में वी हैव वन द टॉप अवार्ड। तो वो उसको ही वाज फीलिंग सो प्राउड कि उसको ये अवार्ड मिला। तो हमने एक बड़ा अच्छा काम मैं समझता हूँ किया, जिसकी एक पूरी पब्लिसिटी हमारी पूरी दुनिया में भी जा रही है। तो मकसद ये है कि मेरी अपनी ये सोच है कि जैसे और मेरी अपनी एक छोटी सी कोड भी है कि नेगेटिविटी बिगेट्स नेगेटिविटी एंड पॉजिटिविटी बिगेट्स पॉजिटिविटी। अगर हम अच्छे काम करेंगे और उसका प्रचार भी करेंगे, जैसे कहते हैं कि लोग मुझे कहते हैं आप क्यों लिंक्डइन पे इतने एक्टिव हैं, मैंने कहा मैं सिर्फ इसलिए इतना एक्टिव हूँ, हालांकि वो सारी दुनिया समझती थी कि जी आपकी सोशल मीडिया टीम बड़ी जबरदस्त है जो आपके लिए पोस्ट लगाती है, वो नेपरा के लिए जरूर लगाती है, वो कश्यप बैठी हैं, लेकिन मैं अपनी पोस्ट खुद लगाता हूँ। और इसलिए कि जैसे कहते हैं कि इंसाफ होना भी चाहिए और इंसाफ होता हुआ नजर भी आना चाहिए। तो अगर हम कोई अच्छे काम कर रहे हैं नेपरा में तो उससे सारी दुनिया को पता भी चलना चाहिए, और शायद कोई इससे कोई पॉजिटिव लीड लेके कोई अच्छा काम करे। मुझे बड़ी खुशी होती है कि जब केई स्पेशली आपको पता है जब हमने शुरू किया था, आगाज किया था, तो 29 फैटेलिटीज थी वहाँ पे पावर ऑन सेफ्टी पे, पावर विद सेफ्टी पे। तो वो हमने ना सिर्फ उसका मदावा किया, 35 लाख रुपए पर पर्सन हमने दिलवाया, फिर नेक्स्ट ऑफ किन को जॉब दिलवाई। इसके बाद हमने पूरे कराची में 2,16,000 पोल्स को अर्थ करवाया, और उससे जो सबसे बड़ा फायदा ये हुआ कि इस साल 8 गुना ज्यादा बारिश हुई कराची में, और अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह एक भी मौत जो है वो केई में रिपोर्ट नहीं हुई इलेक्ट्रोक्यूशन से। तो ये वही है जो सूरह माइदा में है कि अगर आपने एक इंसान की जान बचा ली तो गोया आपने पूरी इंसानियत की जान बचा ली। सोहेल साहब यहाँ बैठे हैं, इज डूइंग अ फैंटास्टिक जॉब, पूरे सेक्टर को देख रहे हैं। इसी तरह महरोज और जवेरिया यहाँ इस वक्त नहीं है, लेकिन दे आर लुकिंग आफ्टर द एंटायर CSR फॉर द एंटायर कंट्री। तो हमारी IT टीम गुलतुलैन की सरबराही में दे आर डूइंग अ फैंटास्टिक जॉब। तो मैं अब इसको अपनी टॉक को यहीं पे समेटता हूँ और लेट द एक्सपर्ट्स टॉक। थैंक यू वेरी मच जी, बहुत शुक्रिया।
शुक्रिया मिजाज सहर साहब। अब मैं दावत देती हूँ रजी फारूकी साहब को, जो के इलेक्ट्रिक में हेड ऑफ साइबर सिक्योरिटी हैं और हमारे पावर सेट के मेंबर भी हैं। आप आएं और आज के मौजू पर अपनी ब्रीफिंग।
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. Can you guys hear me? Ji, Assalamu alaikum. So first of all, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, NEPRA staff, my colleagues, and special thanks to you, Mr. CEO, NTISB, for taking the time out to be present here. So without much ado, let's jump into how do we implement cybersecurity and what is the implementation roadmap. Before I get into it, I think it is important to sort of highlight there's no one right way or wrong. Please work whatever works for you, whatever is best for you. You know your environment, you know your corporation, you can take your priorities. What I can do here is share our experiences as how we are complying with NEPRA regulations. So quickly, who is K Electric? K Electric, as you all know, is the incumbent power provider in the 6th largest city of the world, Karachi. We are the only utility who exist in generation, transmission, and distribution across all the verticals. And we provide power to more than 6,500 square kilometers in excess of 32, 34 million customers, give and take a few thousand. And we have a total strength of almost 12,000, both regular and contractors. So we are a fairly large company. So without much ado, let's go to the second slide. So what is our mission? Our mission is, as you can imagine, is to provide power, to help the economic wheel turn around and help Pakistan develop. Quickly, as I said, we exist in all three. We are the only utility which exists in all three spaces: generation, transmission, distribution. Transmission, if you think about it, we have more than 1,350 kilometers of lines. And that's a lot if you think about it. We have 71 units and 172 power grids. We have more than 8153 MVS capacity, megawatt capacity, and that includes all sorts of mix. So let's quickly get into that. So without much ado, how do we go about implementing the cyber security regulations for this? So at one at a time. So first we have the NEPRA IT regulations, which was, as we all know, was published in September of last year. This is the required compliance. Next. Once we have that, we can keep that as an overarching compliance framework. And based on that, we develop policies, our security policies. Now, the security policies are broad enough that they address both IT and OT side. Licensees can adapt the NEPRA provided sample policies. There is a set of sample policies. You can adapt those to your own organizational needs and environments. That can lead to the third, and that is the gap assessment. And this is where it gets interesting. So what we did was, we did it on two types of gap assessments, on the IT side and on the OT side. And that gap assessment, as you look into it, is as is. What do we have currently in our landscape, and where do we need to go? And that is from policy perspectives on where the gaps are. The gap assessment can lead to two types of gap assessments. One is IT security, governance, and program management. So the gaps will create a sort of direction for IT related, and simultaneously on the OT security. And those gaps will come in both within the governance and program management areas. And once we have that will help us create the roadmap. So there will be broadly two roadmaps: IT security roadmap and OT security roadmap. Those security roadmaps will typically have two broad components: the policies, processes, procedures. And the other one would be tools and technologies. So if you think about it, right from the top, from NEPRA regulations leads to your policies, carry out a gap assessment that will give you clarity in terms of what is missing from what NEPRA is requiring. And that will lead you to two broad areas: governance related policies, processes and procedures, and tools and solutions. Likewise, on the OT security side, when you flow top down, you'll have a broad NEPRA regulations for which your policies should comply with. You carry out a gap assessment of what do we have on the ground and what needs to be done to comply with NEPRA regulations. And those will lead to two types of broad action items. OT security tools and solutions, and OT related policies, SOPs, processes. And this is what will create your cybersecurity program. Your cybersecurity program on the OT side and IT side will essentially work towards addressing those requirements which NEPRA have outlaid as foundational first year, short term, medium term, and long term. And these will then feed back into your gap assessment. So as you go along, it's a cyclical thing. So the last processes, as you update, those feedback, and if you think about it, that will keep your governance and policies and your security program compliant to support NEPRA regulations. And all of this will feed into management and regulatory reporting, matrix, scorecards, KPIs, and whatnot. And in the end, as you can imagine, this is what will lead you to the compliance of NEPRA regulations. Now, also, I would like to point out that it's absolutely imperative that the organizations establish, right when you start on this, commence on this journey, should establish cybersecurity teams. That includes the CISO, as well as the support staff and supporting structures. So how do we do about it? So if you think about it, there will be two broad categories, two broad pillars, two broad roadmaps that will be complied. So all of this cybersecurity program on the OT side and IT side will have a governance component. On the governance side, you can adapt any of the frameworks which essentially comply with NEPRA regulations. Those include ISO 27001, ISA IEC 62443, NIST IR 7268, and those will lead to your policies, SOPs, run books, and create your project management office. That project management office will create programs and steps which will help you comply. These will lead to what we call foundation policies, processes, and tools. And foundation is what can be termed within the short and medium term of NEPRA regulations. So these include baseline policies. These include identity and access management, for example, AD. These include endpoint protection, network security, as well as perimeter security. It includes cryptography, as well as running awareness campaigns. And those awareness campaigns could essentially be part of phishing campaigns, regular training programs, and whatnot. So how did we go about it? At K Electric, because there was not much internal expertise available, we engaged with third-party consulting with one of the big four. I'm not suggesting at all that this is the way to go about it, but this is how we do it. And we engaged with the third party on the IT side. That third party essentially provided us with cybersecurity framework, enterprise cybersecurity framework. It also helped with ISO compliant policies, ISO compliant processes and procedures, and SOPs. It helped us create our SIEM strategy. It helped us create our SOC strategy, which we now call Cyber Defense Command Center. It helped us create best practices for secure coding, as well as run books and playbooks. And if you think about it, this is where we are leveraging actually the global best practices, because these organizations bring in the global best practices from regional and international engagements, and we want to take a head start. Likewise, on the OT side, when we went out, we realized that there was not, unfortunately, there was not too many of the domestic expertise available in the OT cybersecurity space. So we went out, we went through a whole selection procedure, and we sort of started dividing into two things. We started off with a third-party cyber risk consulting. That included the C2M2 assessment on MIL1. I'm not going to jump into C2M2 because that was covered in my previous webinar, which was already present on the NEPRA side. But quickly, C2M2 help us create the roadmap and provide the large domains. Again, these all map directly back to NEPRA regulations. It also helped us create OT threat detection, So for this, what we did was, as you can imagine, KE is such a huge organizations. We have like 5 generation plants, 32 transmission sites, 132, we have smart grids, we have 132, transmission sites and whatnot. So we essentially took a sample. We have a sample which is about more than 1,200 megawatts of BQPS2, Bin Qasim Power Station 2. We took that as a sample site for our generation. Likewise, we took a large transmission site as our OT sample site. Likewise for distribution and IT as well. And we asked these consultants to do a cybersecurity risk assessment. That cybersecurity risk assessment essentially comprised of these actions, OT threat detection, OT vulnerability management, OT SOC strategy. And I think it is important to realize that, and there's no one way, right way or the wrong way. It depends from organization to organization, but because there are a lot more threat vectors targeting IT infrastructure than OT, from the more sort of public perspective, we'd like to keep those separate. We did the OT SOC strategy. They're also advising us on the smart grid risk management and the smart grid risk assessment on NIST IR 75738. OT incident tabletop exercises. So while we had incident management processes and policies, it was important that we carry out through a tabletop exercise as well in terms of the run books, the call trees, what does happen when. OT incident tabletop, OT solution roadmap, and critical asset HLRA. So OT solution roadmap was what solutions are there in the market, what do we need to do, and how do we prioritize? And that led us to our roadmap as well. And the last but not least, most important is HLRA. That means high-level risk assessment of components. Now, this is a very specific exercise which is carried out by these international organizations on OT side. They identify those components all the way down to connectors on which are those connectors which have the most risk, or which are the most risk, or which have the maximum impact if they are impacted, and carry out a risk assessment. And those take priority in terms of taking the corrective or remediation action. Likewise, once we were done with our foundational stuff, we moved into capability maturity modeling and capability maturity solutions. So right now we have threat intelligence, we have MISP, malware, internal distribution setups. We have DNS security, we have NDR, we have EDR and APT. Again, these are all the solutions which were actually extracted from our earlier exercise when we looked at what the NEPRA regulations are, what are the best practices, what do we have as is, and where are the gaps. So as I said before, please keep in mind, it again means that on the governance side, the processes, procedures, those are gapped, as well as on the tools and solutions side. Likewise, on the OT side, we commenced cyber hygiene as well. Cyber hygiene is when we looked at the fundamentals of OT side, because as you can imagine, there was no cybersecurity before. So we started off visiting from existing contracts, OEM contracts with the large space. And these contracts, as you're aware, are multi-million-dollar and multi-year. And because some of these contracts have been signed many years, several years back, they are just being revised. And cybersecurity is a fairly new phenomenon. So we want to make sure that appropriate cybersecurity protection clauses, risks, remediation, there is a sense of responsibility. There is a sense of accountability on the providers as well. So we wanted to update those OEM contracts as well. We wanted to do OEM secure access baselines. So we all are aware that OEM vendors remotely access their assets for configuration management, for operations, for remediation, whatever. And we reached out to them for the likes of Schneider, GE, Siemens, Allen Bradley's, and we said, look, share with us what your global recommended security OEM baselines are, the remote baselines are. And they were very happy to share that. Our engineering teams worked with them. We finalized the designs, we implemented those. So if you think about it, that took our risk away, because then there is a responsibility and accountability on the OEM as well, in the case of some untoward incident. And then we carried out a cyber resilience exercise. So the management and the board was very keen in terms of, because there's no 100% protection, and what if a cyber attack happens, how well we are prepared. So we carried out cyber resilience exercises where we did it actual dry runs of, like, our ICS and DCS setups are offline, they have been knocked off, and how do you do? So we actually went through the whole run books of restoring those backups and actually calling up the call trees and restoring those. And yes, that led to identification of gaps as well, in both in process, tools, and procedures, and those led to our corrective actions as well. And all of this essentially feeds into what we call as cyber risk management. So K Electric is, I think, the first one, if not the only one, who have enterprise risk management function now established. And I report into the chief risk officer because it's all about technology and cyber risk. So we maintain our own cyber risk threat assessments, and we started threat risk assessment. And what that means is continuous, we established a TVM program, the Threat Vulnerability Management Program, a monthly cadence. We started off at PT, penetration testing in on our critical assets, both public facing and internal facing. We carried out and commenced remediation, and we looked at supply chain as well, because as we are all aware, just 2 days back, there was news that British Airways payroll system was attacked, and that was again another supply chain attack because they had used some software from somebody, and that led to a threat vector. So I think it is another very important role, and this circles back to my earlier point to engage with OEM baselines and leverage those OEM security baselines. And this feeds into the ERM, enterprise risk management, right? The next slide, next please. So this feeds into ERM, and by feeding into ERM, we maintain enterprise risk management risk registers, which are presented to the senior management leadership and the board as well. So it gets highlighted and gets escalated to all the way to the board. And all of these actually feed into NEPRA reporting. So if you think about it, as you commence on this journey, there will be regular NEPRA reporting requirements like we had in March. And all of this helps in creating and getting those necessary metrics and reporting to NEPRA regulations. So without much ado, and I'm not going to take too much of your time. I know you guys are already tired on a lazy afternoon on Monday morning, but quickly, what I've tried to do here is map NEPRA regulations to how those could be mapped to the governance policies, which have been shared as sample policies, as well as suggested tools. And the idea is, as you go along this journey and do that and implement those things, you become compliant to the relevant NEPRA clauses. So for example, IT/OT asset security, on the second column is the NEPRA clauses, applicable clauses. And how do we address those from a governance perspective? We have shared policies, asset management, logging, monitoring, communications, access communication, ops and change management. And then there are templates, so the templates are available. If you need it, please reach out. Role-based access control templates, because that will help your cybersecurity team get visibility into who have access to what, role-based. Let's ensure that a plant generation operator who is now moved into finance is not actually having the same access as when he had access to the plant. Related tools for IT security include IAM, AD, PAM, privilege access management, essential, policy sets, IDS, IPS, web application firewalls for your public facing, as well as APT and CASB proxy. And APT is advanced persistent threats, and the CASB is cloud access security brokerage. So likewise, on the OT side is IAM, AD again. Most of the time, the OEMs will do AD, policy sets, and then air gaps, diodes, IDS, IPS firewalls, OT advisory tracking and implementation. And I think this is something I would like to highlight. One thing we have also implemented is We have reached out to all the OT OEMs, asked them to provide us with their regular updates on advisories. Those advisories are circulated and then we track against each advisory on when those gaps have been reported, are they present in our environment, and how those are being addressed. Likewise, second one, security control, implementation and improvement, clauses 511 to 52B, policies, access control, backup, physical, and then templates, VPN guidelines, as well as hardening controls. So if you need it, happy to share VPN guidelines and hardening controls. On the OT side, there are a set of tools I'm not going to read off. It's right there, and my colleagues in the industry are well aware of these tools. But on the OT side, I think it is important to understand that the EP trading isolation installation is important on the OT side. Likewise, for OEM support coverage, and this is again important. OEM support coverage for end of life, end of support. We find out that when we have these huge plants, there could be. And remember, I mentioned high-level risk assessment for component-wise. That is where simple elements and components are highlighted, which have been end of life, end of support for many years, and those are your basic. So, and remember, the insecurity, your security is only as strong as your weakest link. So those are the problems. So when we engage with OEM support coverage for UL OES, get on with them, hold them responsible, accountable. They need to tell us what is UL US in your environment, and that will help you. And this is what we have been doing. And then OEM baseline design, as I just mentioned. Likewise, for conducting regular security assessments and vulnerability assessment. Absolutely critical. As I just mentioned, we carry out, policies are management TVM programs. We have templates for TVM template, monthly cadence, baseline security, and another very important sort of, element for we suggest which we implemented to comply with regular NEPRA regulations was we made mandatory security requirements clauses in all BRDs and RFPs which are published, so that none of the OEMs and participating parties can come back and say, we don't know what you were saying, and those are the basic sort of 7 and 8. If you're happy, we are happy to share that with you as well. And that will help you set the expectations on the OEM side from the security perspective. Again, related tools for IT are right there. And then related tools for OT includes vulnerability detection tools. Now, OT vulnerability detection tools, as you can imagine, are different. And there are either they are the same vendors with OT specific solutions. So for example, KISS, so for example, the IBM and the HPs, they have OT, and Fortinet, they have OT specific solutions. But likewise, there are specific organizations now which are providing and focusing. So and the top two come to mind is Nozomi and Dragos. We are already in the process of acquiring Nozomi, and those are the OT side threat vulnerability management. Again, TPRM, threat risk management, third-party risk management. We are starting to comply with NEPRA regulations in carrying out supply chain protection attacks, and that includes third-party risk management, where we are asking third parties to be held accountable. And then OT patch advisory and OT GRC, again to track the governance, risk, and compliance regulations, the high-end critical vulnerabilities, when those are reported, when those are tracked. Trust me, they are running into hundreds right now. They will grow soon into thousands, and Excel becomes a problem. So we are looking at OT GRC solutions as well. Again, confidentiality and so again, there are NEPRA regulations, clauses 7A to 7B. Again, I'm not going to read off from it quickly. As I said, the policies are there, and then we have the templates available as well. From the OT side, from the IT side, you have encryption tools, for example, BitLocker, TLS for cryptography, for basic security. But on the OT side, again, OT approved encryption tools. I think it is important. It's again important that the OEM and like these OT vendors have their own encryption standards. So it's important to sort of acquire those and implement those. Likewise, OT APT. So advanced persistent threats, NDRs, they're all OT specific in the OT world. A general misconception is an NDR is an NDR is an NDR, APT is an APT. Unfortunately, that's not how it is. It is important to go out and seek out OT specific solutions to protect against OT threats. Yeah, we can do our own baseline security as well, such as secure zoning, microsegmentation, and OE mandated pen testing tools. There again, for pen testing, OEM mandates and provides approvals, so it's essential that they are involved. The next one is authority mandated, assessment, audits and assessment, compliance policy. We have a threat risk management template, TRA. Again, this is related, and these audits will help you to measure compliance to NEPRA regulations. And a lot of these times, as you're all aware, audit will come in and ask for either logs or evidence of how you're complying with NEPRA regulations. And again, they circle back to what tools and governance policies you have implemented. And then monitoring and computer incident response, again, very important. The recommendation is that please implement cyber defense command center type of things, SIEM, Security Operations Center, SOC, those places. And you don't have to establish in-house. There could be many models, as long as they comply with your security baselines and NEPRA regulations and the national regulations for data protection. On the SOAP OT side, what we have done is we are establishing a separate SOC, which will only be focused on generation, transmission, and distribution side. This is not integrated with IT. We have our own security incident ticketing system, very important. Likewise, OT threat management threat intel. So it is important to subscribe to threat intelligence feeds. There are open source threat intelligence feeds, and then there are subscription-based threat intelligence feeds, and they are really helpful because that will give you a head start and beyond visual range on what those threats are coming up. So in KE, how we focus is global threats focused on energy and power utilities, threats which are focused on Asia Pacific and South Asia, threats which are focused on Pakistan, threats which are focused on K Electric. And that what happens is that we get those IOCs, indicators of compromise, hashes, URLs, and those are automatically updated on our security protection tools. So we essentially build in protection for all those threats which are being detected by these threat feeds, intelligent feeds. For that, we carry out tabletop exercises as well. And again, as I mentioned, the tabletop exercise ensures that in case of an actual incident, the people are aware of whom to call trees, who will do what, where, how do we continue our operations. And quickly, awareness and training. We have the, we have the templates, phishing campaigns. We carry out phishing campaigns across our K Electric population. We have periodic computer-based trainings, phishing simulators, and I would suggest perhaps, although this whole presentation is vendor agnostic, but I, being a Pakistani, would certainly like to mention Fishrod, because Fishrod is a Pakistani product in the international arena, and they are doing a fabulous job. They are very affordable, and and as Pakistanis, we should patronize them. So Fishrod is doing a great job, and we have had some very interesting simulations. Some time back, we had some funny campaigns where even most seasoned people got trapped because we were offering some special for the Eid, and people got trapped. So it's always helpful to do that. The industry index for phishing is around 5.2. So they said if you're less than this index, you are protected. So we hover between 3.8 and 4.2. So I'm very proud to say that we are within the industry index. If it goes beyond 5.2, then it's time to do more awareness campaigns. But it's a continuous fight. Regulatory reporting requirements, again, compliance reporting, compliance policies, processes, we have our cybersecurity risk committee, and then we're establishing processes where we will be complying with how to report into, we already have informal, but we are now formalizing that. Power cert, as you're all aware, NEPRA have established Power Cert, for which my esteemed colleagues here are members as well. I'm also a member under the auspices of NEPRA staff and Mr. Chairman, and we are trying to pull up the industry as well, and transfer knowledge and advise on cybersecurity, and then communications in terms of how do we communicate to NEPRA and the other stakeholders. Here's just a quick outlook of what it looks like. So once you have a roadmap, this is a sample roadmap, and this is typically 2 to 3 year roadmap. This is presented here because this is one of the key outputs which you will get if and when you go through the gap assessment. Because once you have the gap assessment and you measure those gaps and what you as is and where you want to be, these are the kinds of steps which will come out. So on the left corner are the domains, the 10 domains from C2M2, and those domains, and then as you see from left to right, these are the timelines. What comes. So those are sequential. So for example, there is third-party risk management, there is workforce management, there is identity and access management, and all of those are sort of included in how do we go about. So this will provide you with a roadmap of when to do what. It also helps you prioritize in terms of the NEPRA regulations on short-term, medium-term, and long-term basis. And this is something which we have developed internally, tools to track your journey. So this is something which, so it's always said that if you cannot describe your security program in one page and where you are and where you want to go, then you are not clear enough. So this is one thing which might help you. I thought I will share this with you. So if you think about it, this is a whole sort of a program security role. So in the center are your OT assets, ICS, DCS, as well as RTUs, PLCs, HMIs. Around those are the security tools, processes, and governance is built in. So on the right side is your threat risk management, and the governance, which IEC 62443 and whatever framework you adapt, as well as NEPRA regulations. On the baseline are those. On the south side are the key sort of elements which help you identifying where your gaps are. On the north side is the IAM and PAM on who is accessing to what, and on the left side are the SIEM and SOC monitoring solutions, and which feed into NEPRA dashboard and reporting. And on the north side, it reports into NEPRA as well. This will help you. This is something which we use to get a snapshot of where do we are and what do we need to focus on. So if you color coded, the greens are the ones, and this is just a representative. This is just a sample. This is not the actual. K-Electric has much more sort of implemented. But I thought I should share this. So if you paint green, blue, and brown, or red, you will know where the gaps are and where you need to focus your next efforts. Again, so we have a high-level implementation guides available on request. And if you have time and if you guys are interested, we can quickly go through it. That is clause by clause sort of suggestions, high-level guidelines and tips, which our esteemed licenses can use in terms of looking at how do they comply with the NEPRA regulations. If you need more help, we are here to help you either through NEPRA platform or as industry, colleagues as well. So that includes, we're happy to provide following sample templates, which include cybersecurity sample policies, threat vulnerability management program, incident, SOP processes, threat risk assessments, VAPT, TRA templates, VPN guidelines. We all are moving towards remote access. We all have remote access, so VPN guidelines is essential. Cybersecurity clauses for RFP, BRD, as I just mentioned, very important to set the tone right at the onset of new projects and acquisition of automation tools. We have teleworking guidelines, so a lot of our users are now working remotely. This is the new trend after a pandemic, and I think it's here to stay. And from a cybersecurity perspective, it's important that we have teleworking guidelines. Firewall hardening, happy to provide you These are all templates which will help you harden your firewalls. Firewall hardening, securing production server templates. So we have a standard process of whatever server, either in IT or OT, which goes into production, they have to comply with a set of security checklists. Those are about 20-25 steps. So we want to make sure that it is licensed software, it has EDR, it is antivirus, the ports are closed, only those ports are open which are requested, and so on and so forth. And then endpoint hardening controls as well. We all know that more than 50% of attacks actually are emanate from endpoint controls, which are not there. So, and again, these are all free templates available if you wish it. And these do not require any sort of financial sort of impact on the organizations. You can implement it fairly easily, and that essentially, and that is what it is. Thank you. That's my QR code. Scan it if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. And yeah, so that pretty much concludes my presentation. I know I've run through it. I can, if you wish, and if you have the stamina, we can go clause by clause as well in terms of tips and guidelines. Or it might be helpful if you can ask from the NEPRA platform, and I will be happy to sort of provide you with those, and happy to take any questions.
Just simple question, like in OT space at KE, so what are your top cybersecurity risks, and what are you doing to manage them? How effective is the measure that you're taking?
So thanks, Dr. Babar Saab. So on OT space, and frankly, that includes our IT space as well, the top threats which we are facing is, number one is end of life, end of support components. Now, I know it sounds very basic, but when we took a deep dive into our critical assets within our sample size, generation, transmission, distribution, and no credit to us, the credit was to the international organization, and I'm happy to share the name as well. And they sort of, led us, and they transferred the knowledge of best practice into identifying those components which had a direct impact or indirect impact on service availability and power ability, the business disruption. That was the high-level risk assessment. That provided us with clarity on the component level, on the element level, on what are our most important assets and what are we doing about that. So that includes risks in terms of end of life, end of support. So we are reaching out to the service providers to provide updates. We are talking with our client colleagues to start looking at how can we make them the currency, as well as looking at the patching side. So those are the sort of top risks which we have. So that's number one. Second top, and I would say somewhere on the top, is the access, the remote access, because as you're aware, Dr. Saab, a lot of these OEMs come globally. They're dialing from Brazil, they're dialing from North America, they're dialing from Far East to carry out their operations, gas chromatographer, looking at the generation plants. And they were just coming and going, and we realized we need to have visibility and control. And we reached out to them and said, look, please share with us your security baselines. They provided us, and we have implemented those on our generation plan. So that is our second. And the third risk is, as I mentioned, the role-based access control. Who have access to what? And we want to make sure that only those operators have access to relevant pieces. So those are the sort of top risks which we are seeing, and the steps which are taking to mitigate those risks. Thank you. Happy.
Any questions from our virtual audience? Any question from virtual audience?
Sorry, we can't hear you, Bilal. Ji, Irfan sir? Or I think we lost you there. If it helps, you can pose your question in the chat here as well. We'll read off and try to respond to it. Okay.
Hello, sir. It's Zahid from Thal Industries. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, Zahid, we can hear you.
Sir, I would like to know that there is a product named as firewall protector, which is IP-less. Now we believe that we are living in an era. If any device is IP-based, it can be hacked. It is assumed that if any device has an IP address, it can be compromised. As far as our knowledge is concerned, we have known that there is a product known as firewall protector that is IP-less, and it's being configured by a console cable. Can you please guide us about it?
So, Zahid, your name was Zahid, right?
Yes, I'm from Thal Industries.
Right. Zahid, thank you so very much. That's a great question. Unfortunately, Zahid, I'm not sure if we can provide you with clarity on the specific solutions, but our recommendation based on the experience would be, please do not assume anything is protected from cybersecurity attack. World's best organizations get attacked, and so don't think that there is anything which will protect you, whether IP or IP less, unfortunately. So please take all these solutions with a pinch of salt. Assume that you are going to be attacked. Zero trust. Zero trust is the name of the game. Do not trust any object, any solution. Yes, it's always helpful to acquire whatever is out there in the market, which reduces your risk, which increases your protection. But I think thinking that it becomes beyond cybersecurity, I think that's too much to chew. So yeah, I hope that answers your questions. Dr. Saab, would you like to pitch in for this?
Yeah, I would like to.
Sorry. So Dr. Babar here is the CEO of National Information Technology Board and has been very kind to come here, and listen to our. So please, Dr. Saab.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I would like to give 2 cents here. Yes, IP-less protection of firewall is available, but the answer doesn't lie in this technology. Actually, the answer lies in how you set it up. So you need to make your security architecture accordingly. So the answer actually lies that how you define your security architecture also dictates the use of the technology. So every technology comes with its own vulnerabilities. So it's not a silver bullet here to protect you against the firewall attacks. But yes, it does help. But you need to modify your security architecture accordingly.
Thank you, Rasam. Zaid, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much, sir. So nice of you. Sir, kindly tell us how can we get these documents you have talked about in your presentation.
So you can reach out to NEPRA, NEPRA contact person, Ms. Kuratulan, and she would be happy to provide you guidance on those.
So nice of you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any other question from the audience, virtual audience? My question.
I have posted a question in chat. If you can read and answer it, please.
So they have a question in chat.
क्या नाम था साहब का?
सज्जाद साहब का. How all these good practices relate to a completely isolated system, not connected to any WAN or internet? What if IT infrastructure is completely isolated from OT?
So Sajjad sir, thank you very much. Very interesting and very happily asked questions. So I would start off by saying that, as one of my mentors used to say, presumption is the mother of all mess ups. Please, the presumption that we are insulated or air gapped from any IT threats or from outside world threats is a bit too much. Please don't presume. As my colleague Mehzad mentioned, Stuxnet happened on our, brother countries' nuclear assets, even though despite they were air gapped. Two, if you go out and reach out, so this is critical infrastructure protection. There are now enough open source tools which help you pick up, eavesdrop on things which are air gapped. So yes, to answer your question simply, it does provide you with enhanced and expanded protection, but the assumption that we are safe would be a bit too much. My suggestion, our recommendation would be to presume zero trust. Presume that there are some connections. There is shadow IT. We all are aware of shadow IT, where there are users who are putting in assets which may not be within your visibility, and that can pose serious challenges under the radar. So yeah, does it answer your question?
Razi, if you allow me to add more, as you mentioned, like zero trust is the solution. Also, 90% of the threat, they are internal threats, unfortunately. So where there might be intentional or unintentional, act which may introduce and bypass the so-called air gap. So better to work on the preventive control rather than believing on a myth that we are not connected with the internet. There are a lot of things on the intranet where no matter the exposure is not towards internet, things can be exploited with the help of these type of maintenance engineer activities and USB insertion, etc. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Mehzad. That's a very useful advice. Thank you.
जी एक खातून कोई सवाल पूछ रही थी ठीक है कोई और क्वेश्चन जी किसी का हॉल में बैठे हुए किसी साहब का कोई क्वेश्चन चलें और anything?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Razi साहब.
अब मैं चेयरमैन नेप्रा से गुजारिश करूंगी कि आज के वेबिनार के क्लोजिंग रिमार्क्स के लिए तशरीफ लाएं.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Apologies, I had to leave actually. लाहौर से एनर्जी सेक्रेटरी और पीपीडीबी की एक चेयरपर्सन है वो आई थी तो उनकी कल एक हियरिंग है तो उस पर कुछ डिस्कशंस थी हमारी बड़ी क्रिटिकल तो आई वाज थिंकिंग कि मे बी 10-15 मिनट में वो ख़त्म हो जाएंगी बट इट टुक मे बी ऑलमोस्ट 1 आवर तो खैर मेरे होने ना होने से फ़र्क इसलिए नहीं पड़ता कि आई एम श्योर माय ऑडियंस वाज प्रॉब्ली इन द बेस्ट पॉसिबल हैंड्स सेफेस्ट हैंड्स पॉसिबल तो दोनों मेहजाज साहब भी और रजी आप दोनों अपनी अपनी फील्ड के एक्सपर्ट्स हैं माशाल्लाह तो आई एम श्योर कि हमारी ऑडियंस ने बड़ा अच्छा लर्न किया होगा और हमारे जो लाइसेंसीज हैं उनमें जो लोग भी आईटी और ओटी को देख रहे हैं वो प्लीज़ बड़ा रेगुलरली इन वेबिनार्स को और जो हम करते हैं यहाँ पे बड़े रेगुलरली उनको अटेंड किया करें और मेक श्योर कि आपके सारे कलीग्स हमारे 300 प्लस लाइसेंसीज हैं तो हर प्लांट से एक आदमी ना होना बड़ी हैरत की बात है क्योंकि हमारे पास आज कितने लोग थे टोटल 170 तक तो तकरीबन हाफ ऑफ आवर लाइसेंसीज दे वर रिप्रेजेंटिंग देयर प्लांट्स टुडे तो जबकि लाइसेंसीज अगर 300 प्लस हैं तो मुझे कोई वजह समझ में नहीं आती कि आपको फ्री लर्निंग मिल रही हो और जो आपने एक कंप्लायंस करनी है यू कांट गेट अवे फ्रॉम दिस ये नहीं है कि ये कोई हमने यहाँ पे आपको कोई चीज़ बताई है तो आपकी मर्जी तो आप कर लें आपकी नहीं मर्जी तो आप ना करें दिस इज द रेगुलेशन दैट यू हैव टू कंप्लाई विद और अगर आप नहीं करते तो इसकी वेरी सीरियस लीगल कॉनोटेशंस विल बी देयर हम आपको नेक्स्ट स्टेप में अभी तो हम बहुत सॉफ्टली आपके साथ चल रहे हैं लेकिन अगर आप ये नहीं करते कंप्लायंस इसकी जिसका अल्टीमेट बेनिफिशियरी जो है आप खुद हैं क्योंकि आपके प्लांट्स ये $multi-billion के जो प्लांट्स लगे हुए हैं یہ آپ کے اپنے پلانٹس ہیں. مجھے نہیں پتا کہ سائبر اٹیکس انشورنس جو ہے آپ کی وہ کور کرتے ہیں کہ نہیں کرتے. رضی آپ کو کوئی اس بارے میں آئیڈیا ہے؟ I'm quite sure I'll be extremely surprised کہ اگر آپ کی انشورنس جو ہے وہ باقی تو کوریج شاید کر لے, لیکن سائبر اٹیک کو اس لیے بھی وہ ان کو کور نہیں کرنا چاہیے کہ you should be able to put the safeguard in place to protect yourself from cyber attack, because this is a clear and present danger, جو کہ یہ نہیں ہے کہ شاید ہو جائے, بلکہ this is کیونکہ دیکھو نا, it's so convenient, anybody can from the luxury of his bedroom or living room or even garage یا even چلتے پھرتے وہ کہیں سے بھی یہ اٹیک لانچ کر سکتے ہیں. اور یہ جو اٹیکس ہم نے پاس میں دیکھے ہیں وہ یہ ہوتا بھی نہیں ہے کہ کوئی سڈن اٹیک ہو, بڑے سلولی اینڈ گریجولی وہ چیزیں پہلے لانچ کرتے ہیں, اس کو آپ کے سسٹم میں ڈالتے ہیں, اس کے بعد پھر آہستہ آہستہ ویٹ کرتے ہیں, پھر وہ چیز اسپریڈ ہوتی ہے. تو اس لیے دیر از ایبسلیوٹلی نو ایکسکیوز. اگر ہم نے یہ کام کر لیا ہے کہ مشکل کام کے اتنے مہنگے اپنے ایسٹس لگا دیے یہاں پہ, تو اس کو پروٹیکٹ کرنا ہماری ذمہ داری ہے. تو آئی ہوپ کہ آپ لوگوں کو اس سے فائدہ اٹھا رہے ہوں گے, اور آپ لوگوں کے لیے بھی یہ بڑی امپورٹنٹ چیز ہے. نیپرا از ٹرائنگ ٹو کریٹ لاٹ آف جابس آئی ٹی سیکٹر میں. ابھی ہم یہ خالی ایسا نہیں ہے کہ ہم زبردستی ان کو خالی یہ کہہ رہے کریں, بلکہ اب نیکسٹ فیز میں ہم انشاءاللہ آڈٹ شروع کریں گے. اور جب آڈٹ شروع کریں گے تو جس نے پورا پیرافرنیلیا جو ہے وہ نہیں رکھا ہوگا, انفراسٹرکچر نہیں ہوگا اس کا آئی ٹی اور او ٹی کو پروٹیکشن کے لیے, تو اٹ ول بی اے ویری سیریس وائلیشن آن پارٹ آف آر لائسنسی. تو اس لیے یہ آپ کو بڑے سافٹ انداز میں ہم ریمائنڈر دے رہے ہیں, بتا رہے ہیں, ایجوکیٹ کر رہے ہیں کہ آپ کا ایگزام لینے سے پہلے آپ کو بھرپور تیاری کرائیں. لیکن جب آپ کا ایگزام ہوگا اور پھر کسی نے یہ کہا کہ جی آؤٹ آف کورس کوشچن آپ نے پوچھ لیا ہے, تو یہ وہاں پہ ایکسیپٹیبل نہیں ہوگا. تو اس لیے ابھی اپنی محنت کریں. آپ کو 10 سوال پوچھنے ہیں, 100 سوال پوچھنے ہیں. آپ ہماری آئی ٹی ٹیم ہے, ہمارے ایکسپرٹس ہیں, اور تھینکس ٹو رضی اینڈ مہزاد, یہ دونوں ہمارے پاور سرٹ کا حصہ ہیں. دے والنٹیئرڈ فار دیٹ. اپنا قیمتی ٹائم ہمارے ساتھ لگاتے ہیں. یہ سارا کچھ جو کر رہے ہیں, ابھی کراچی سے آئے ہیں, تو دس آل ریکوائرز یور ٹائم, یور منی, یور انرجی. تو یہ سب والنٹیئر کر رہے ہیں ایک پرو بونو بیسس پہ. تو اس لیے ہم سب کو چاہیے کہ اس کو اپریشیٹ بھی کریں, اور سب سے زیادہ اپریسیشن کا جو طریقہ کار ہوتا ہے کہ آپ کسی کو ایمولیٹ کریں, کسی کے جو اچھی بات ہے اس کو, جیسے ہم سنت پہ چلنے کی بات کرتے ہیں, تو اگر آپ نے اپنے پیغمبر کو سب سے زیادہ اپریشیٹ کرنا ہے تو اس سے بہتر اپریسیشن کا کوئی طریقہ نہیں ہو سکتا کہ آپ ان کی سنت کو اڈاپٹ کریں. تو اسی طرح آپ کے وہ والنٹیئرز جو آپ کو یہاں پہ کوئی چیز سکھا رہے ہیں, اس سے زیادہ ان کو خوشی کوئی نہیں ہوگی کہ اگر ان کے اس انویسٹمنٹ سے جو ٹائم, انرجی اور ریسورسز کی وہ کر رہے ہیں, اس سے آپ میں سے سب کو, کچھ کو یا ایک کو بھی کوئی فائدہ ہو جائے اور وہ آپ پراپر پروٹیکشن کر سکیں. So with this, I close my remarks, and I once again thank you very much for all the participants اور ہمارے دونوں اسپیشلی ایکسپرٹس, اور جتنے لوگ ہمارے زوم پہ تھے یا یہاں پہ آئے. And once again thank you to my IT team for conducting these webinars, اور آپ کا ہوسٹ کرنے کا شکریہ. Thank you very much جی. Thank you.